Durak. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Head of Customer Success for Solvoyo. We are a next-generation platform that helps clients manage their supply chains end-to-end, from demand all the way to delivery, with little to no human intervention. Welcome. We covered a lot about the distribution industry, right? Mike coming from distribution industry, talking about the challenges and some of the successful applications of technology. But there is also a very important player here, which is providing all the input into the distribution industry, which is the manufacturers. So, Asena, when you look at CPG manufacturers who are not only dealing with perishable products from dairy to seafood to bakery, and also managing significant cold chains, right? Like, our client Unilever, managing ice cream business. Like, what do you really see are absolutely critical to for success managing fresh supply chains for the professionals?
Yes, so definitely starting with proximity to the end customer, right? Mike mentioned that coming from the customer point of view and getting a demand signal, demand sensing. So one of the things that they're doing right now is collaborating with their sales channels, retail chains, and getting their point of sale data to use in demand sensing so they can see those signals literally real time, as fast as the retailers can see it, and therefore can adjust their plans, their production plans, their capacity plans, their allocation, fulfillment, transportation plans accordingly. They're also now doing more sophisticated capacity planning, resource planning, production planning, line scheduling in a synchronized manner. So although especially in the case of ice cream, the demand is really peaking in a few months, like 50% of the ice cream is sold, I think, in like 2 or 3 months. They have to build up to that. But in order to do that, you really have to plan at a very detailed level, starting with your schedules, how many people they're going to work, how many lines they're going to use, and build literally the whole year's production plan for the bread and butter items, the top sellers, so that they have in season the flexibility to react to those changes in trends, changes due to new product introduction, because God knows every year you see different flavors of ice cream, right? The new products, they have to put it in front of the customer, and they're not going to know exactly how many they need until the customer starts, tasting and then see if they like it, love it, they don't like it. So being able to really build up the core products months ahead, and then free up capacity to be more agile during the season. So that in itself, is a major, I think, game-changing capability, and to be able to use technology in such an integrated fashion, and starting from, demand to inventory to capacity, line scheduling, and kind of going through that loop literally, every day, every week, across thousands of SKUs, definitely requires, I think, more power than human brains can provide. So that's where one plays also. And the other one is getting really smarter about fulfillment and transportation planning, and planning those simultaneously. Traditionally, those were literally separate organizations, customer service basically deciding how to allocate inventory against the sales orders coming from retailers, and then the logistics taking care of the whole trucking side of it, or just transportation in general. But now merging those again to be more focused on the overall supply chain, lean management, as well as total cost to serve, so that there is a synchronized planning that addresses all the opportunities and efficiencies by solving these problems simultaneously, which by itself, again, is an optimization problem. So those types of capabilities we see emerging with the CPG companies, and then ultimately kind of closing that loop with the retailers, doing more collaboration, being able to collaborate on the events, promotional events that are coming up, being able to collaborate on supply crisis or disasters or disruptions, and being able to come up with different strategies. And doing it at a fairly local level again makes it even more fun. And overall, the bottom line is CPG is not falling behind. They are also taking advantage of these advanced technologies and synchronized planning capabilities.
Well, that's wonderful segue, Mike, because I know that as a distribution leader, you have to worry about the increasing fuel costs, right? And making sure that your flow operation, and in the case of CPGs is of course fulfillment, but making sure that your flow operation consider not only freshness, but also transportation cost in making these decisions upfront in those fulfillment side, so that those decisions are not made in a silo. To Asena's point, right? It's not just the customer priority that goes into the decision, when you're basically fulfilling an order, because there's a lot of constraints in there, right? The customer priority, customer importance, but then incorporating a very important aspect, which is managing transportation cost into the mix, while also maintaining freshness, is something that I know that as a distribution, overall supply chain, end-to-end supply chain leader, you're really worried about on the distribution side. Do you want to just add a few points about that aspect of fresh supply chain, Mike, before we go into our last question, which is the practical takeaways?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, from a transportation perspective, in the end-to-end work that I've done, having the transportation leaders a part of the process was absolutely critical. It seems like a no-brainer, but there are multiple functions that you want to be able to have, whether that's the transportation strategy, or it is the brokerage side, or if you have an internal fleet, being able to have all of them at the table. Because in the end, you're dealing with scarce resources. You only have so many drivers. You only have so many team drivers. You only have so many trailers. So that scarcity of resources has to be utilized effectively. And of course, transportation has a ton of metrics that helps them understand their utilization, whether that's a cost per mile, cube per mile. From a fresh perspective, the biggest thing that we were working on was the allocation of team drivers, because the one thing we knew team drivers could do for us is keep the product moving. Because anytime that a fresh product stops in the supply chain, you are taking shelf life away from your customer. Mm-hmm. That's the short of it. And so that was the same kind of principle that we used across the board, whether that was inventory strategies, whether it was labor schedules, whatever it might be. We looked at where does a case stop? Where does it dwell? How long does it dwell, and why? And going back to some of my earlier comments about self-imposed constraints, transportation optimization is critical. So not only the use of the assets and resources that you have, but also just, from a routing perspective, the advancements in algorithms to be able to drive massively efficient routes for both inbound and outbound freight. Those have been game changers. The amount of constraints that these algorithms can consume and be able to plan against, to be able to route against, absolute game changer for distribution.
Oh, absolutely. It is another very complex area of the supply chain, which is being overlooked most of the time because it's the end of the line, right? And being ignored and overlooked, but it's where the rubber meets the road, because that's where the delivery to the ultimate customer takes place. So, your comments are absolutely valuable, and the advancement of technology in that area, however unsexy as it sounds, are quite advanced. So I'm glad that you touch upon that, Mike.